So I'd like to say a few words on Dhamma, but first I'll pay respects to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Saññā Namassāmi. So today is quite a special day in the Buddhist calendar. It's Asalha Puja, which is the full moon of July, and this is the day before the start of the Vassa, of the 3 months rains retreat for the nuns and monks. And traditionally, in India, at the time of the Buddha, this was the time when the monastics, the wanderers, would make a determination to stay in one place for the duration of the monsoon season, so that the crops that were growing in the rains, this fertile time of the year, would not be disturbed, wouldn't get trampled, wouldn't be damaged by the wandering mendicants, like the nuns and spiritual practitioners who were homeless wanderers. And so we make a determination to this day, at this time of year, monastics, Theravada Buddhist monastics, decide where they're going to spend the next 3 months and determine their place of practice, so that we're not moving around as much. So we all need to choose a place and arrive, hopefully in time, for the start of the Vassa and settle for 3 months. It doesn't mean that we can't go for walks, move around in nature, but we're just not doing so much of the travelling, longer distance travelling, Tudong practice. Not so much of that at this time, and it's traditionally a time when we have a chance to be together in maybe larger numbers than usual, maybe coming together in more settled, larger communities, and we can take the opportunity then to look at the Vinaya rules, study our precepts, and also take the chance to speak on Dhamma together, to study the words of the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha, and have a chance to talk about our practice and practice together. So it's quite a special occasion in the Buddhist calendar. Traditionally it would have been a time of retreat. Well, in quite a few countries where Buddhism has spread, it's not actually a monsoon time, as we know. It's more like a summer holidays, and can be quite a busy time for monasteries, with people having time, to come and visit and practice, kind of holiday period. So it can be a time of retreat, but it also can be a time of actually making opportunities for people to come and visit the monasteries and do retreats and have lay retreats, and people coming to practice as guests and visitors to monasteries. And we can have, usually monastics have retreat time in the winter, more often in the winter. In Western countries, when it is actually quieter, and the nature is more, also quiet and more peaceful in many ways, and it's not so conducive for people to come visit. So the retreat time's not always in this period of time, this Vassa period, but it can be a period of time for a lot of communal group gatherings and opportunities for practicing together. Anyway, what I'm really reflecting on today is Anicca Saññā, change. I find it quite interesting how the mind doesn't really move into the future so much as we practice. We tend to be more rooted in the present moment. And so these big changes, change of location, or big changes that can happen in life, when people pass away, or we turn from being healthy into having some kind of diagnosis, some kind of illness, big changes that happen can often, come unexpectedly and not really register until they're happening, until they're actually happening, or until after they've happened, in a way. The real experience of change is a constant experience for us in the present, and I find that, through meditation practice, the sense of change is something different. It's not so much about the big changes that happen, but it's noticing the constant flow of experience, how that is never static, never solid, always flowing. And it's interesting that when we really pay attention to this reality of impermanence, moment by moment, the big changes are almost more seamless, more natural for us. It's not such a jarring, shocking event when some big change comes along, because we've had training in noticing the reality of impermanence on a daily, on a moment by moment basis. So it no longer takes us by surprise when big shifts happen, sudden disappearances of loved ones, or sudden change in our circumstances physically or geographically, moving around, having to say goodbye to people and so forth. It's in a way, if we're really kind of waking up to the reality of anicca, of impermanence, we recognize, don't we, that we're always saying goodbye to people. Every time we part, do we know that we're going to meet them again? Well, no, we can't really know that. This could be it, And we often say things, don't we, like, see you later, see you soon, bye for now. And that's natural, because, it is realistic to maybe assume that if we have a neighbour, we're likely to see them again one day, next day, day after, and so on. But we never know. And even though we might use these kind of colloquial figures of speech, ways of speaking to one another, we can recognise as practitioners that, the reality is something different. And when we meet again, it's not really the same people meeting again. It's always different, because we're changing, and they're changing, and everything's changing, right? We're constantly changing. So we never meet the same people again. And we're not a constant, reliable, unchanging phenomenon. On the contrary, we're constantly shifting and changing. And the beauty of, developing this perception of change, this opening to the reality of change, is that, we can free up from our expectations about others, and free up our thoughts and feelings and assumptions about ourselves also. We're not definable. We can't pigeonhole ourselves, really. We're as unpredictable as anyone else. And when we practice, isn't it easier to understand this, to perceive this, because we can see how, isn't it, when we pay attention to the body, pay attention to this mind, these emotions, we can see how they're really not in our control, and we don't really know what's coming next. And I don't know about you, but I can certainly be taken by surprise. Thoughts, memories, feelings that arise seemingly out of the blue. And our work really is not to try and always figure out what's going on, why things are happening, but simply to be willing to open to that and allow this kind of free flow of experience to be what it is. When we have thoughts and expectations about who we are, assumptions and ideas about what kind of a person we are, then we're almost like limiting reality. We're closing it down, aren't we? We're kind of putting ourselves in a box, literally, pigeonholing, categorizing, assuming this is a kind of perpetual state. And, sure enough, if we have this kind of mental attitude, then this is what we create for ourselves. And we are limited, and there's no real room for change to manifest. So it's really opening the mind, Anicca Saññā. Perception of impermanence is really allowing ourselves to open up to the kind of almost infinite possibilities. Reality is very rich and very, multi-hued, varied. There's a multiplicity of possibilities, and we don't want to get caught up in seeking to discover more and more and more about reality. No, but simply to be present with what is, with what arises, and to allow the extraordinary way things move in nature, the natural unfolding of reality to be experienced. And so this Anicca Saññā I find very valuable as a contemplation, as a way of relating to our experience in meditation, the way we can pay attention to the body and just see the change, feel the change, the way the breath is constantly changing, the way thoughts are arising and passing incredibly rapidly, and we're all over the place with thinking, constant change, constant flow, and also the emotions when we're really allowing the flow of energy in the body, in the mind. We can see how the emotional world is very changeable also. Feelings arising like bubbles, the Buddha said, popping, and then another one comes, like a fizzy drink, like my Coke I've got here. The feelings are, coming and going so fast. And if we can, keep a keep away from grasping and holding to any particular experience, then it really allows this reality, and things move through us. Dhammas move through us. They move simply, and we can observe this reality and just keep letting go, flowing with reality rather than grasping any particular aspect of reality and trying to make it solid, trying to make it lasting and permanent. We're doomed to fail if we do this, and not only that, but it's suffering. It's big suffering, because whenever we try to move away from reality and control our experience, it's very painful for us, and it's a huge effort as well to do that. So we can relax, lie back. It's like lying on a lilo, one of those body, or a kayak, or some sort of board that floats, canoe or a raft, lying on it, and just letting the current take us, with skill. We can make right effort to steer a little bit here and there, but basically we can watch what's unfolding. If there are unskillful thoughts and painful feelings arising, we want to really pay attention to them, and it's almost like we want to steer a little bit. We want to be very careful. The Buddha said it's like a cow herder, isn't it, in the monsoon season, when the monks and nuns are all avoiding trampling the crops. The cow herder has to watch the cows very carefully to make sure that they don't damage other farmers or their own crops. When we have unskillful mind states arising, we want to be fairly careful not to, follow them, not to grasp them, not to make them any more than they are, and as to allow them to arise and pass in their own way, and have a hands-off approach, but care can be required. When the thoughts, feelings, experiences are skillful or neutral, then we can sit back like the cow herder at the end of the harvest. We can sit back and just allow the cows to roam freely, grazing here and there. So there's a certain amount of effort at times that's required to steer carefully, steer away from danger, avoid waterfalls, crocodiles, whirlpools and such like. Be aware of the danger of negative or very passionate states of mind. Not that they're to be suppressed or crushed or ignored, or no, we can allow difficult mind states to arise, but we want to be very vigilant and not hold on to them in any way, not to make more of them, just allow them to be seen, to be understood, and in understanding suffering, of course, we can let it go, see things follow their natural course, arise and pass away. So these are just a few thoughts about practice in terms of anicca, change. The Buddha said, that if we develop this perception of change, of impermanence in our practice and in our lives, in our everyday lives, it's not difficult to see the constant change that's going on around us and within us, and we can just keep noticing that. The Buddha said there are great advantages to be had in contemplating change in these ways. There's a sutta, beautiful sutta, in Khandaka section of Samyutta Nikaya, the Khanda section, section on the aggregates, a huge chapter of so many teachings on the 5 khandas. And there's one of the suttas is Anicca Saññā Sutta. And here the Buddha tells us about the advantages of paying attention to impermanence. And he says in this sutta that there are 5 benefits that we can experience when we direct our attention to impermanence, to anicca, to change. And he said the first thing that we can notice is that this reduces our attachment to sense pleasures. And we can see why that would be the case. Because if we're, noticing how fleeting, how transient, how insubstantial sense pleasures actually are, then we are much less likely to get caught up in pursuing, more pleasure, more of the same endless kind of pursuit for very little gain. We have a beautiful, delicious meal. Well, it's over, in a matter of minutes. We could maybe span it out to an hour or two if we were really relishing and sort of making the most of every mouthful, but nevertheless, no meal lasts very long. And so why make a big fuss about getting this food or that food? It's such a tiny part of our day. Why make it more important than it is? It's a way to nourish the body, fuel the body, bring energy to the body so we can continue to practice. But more than that, we're, just getting lost in suffering. Because if we pursue, sense pleasures in relation to tastes and smells, then we inevitably we're disappointed, because the more we promote these kind of desires, the more they grow, and they're kind of insatiable, aren't they? We can really notice that. It's like when people get into eating disorders, it's like you can never quite have enough, or sometimes you can never quite deprive yourself enough. Very painful obsessions we can have around food and around eating. But if we have good understanding and practice around Anicca Saññā, seeing the impermanence of these pleasures, the fleeting nature of taste, we really can become quite cool around food. We can be quite detached in a good way. We can be grateful for the food that we're offered or that we're able to procure for ourselves, but we don't spend more time than necessary in its kind of preparation and consumption. In the same way, with any kind of entertainment or delightful pursuit, we can appreciate, if we are aware of impermanence, how nothing really lasts. We can't really do anything for very long. We're constantly having to rest, change postures, go to the toilet. There's interruptions, and no pleasurable pursuit can be followed indefinitely. And if we were to try to prolong pleasure, what happens, of course, is it turns into pain. So anything we do, eating too much, walking too much, watching too much TV, playing too many video games, if we do too much of anything at all that we like to do, it becomes painful for us. We get uncomfortable, we get unhealthy, we get kind of drained, And so again, it's seeing how insubstantial sense pleasures are through Anicca Saññā, that we can really notice that our attachment, our gravitating towards sense pleasures, it begins to diminish, and we're that much freer, we're that much more contented. We can notice that we're more contented and more peaceful simply to be present in each moment. So the second benefit the Buddha said to practicing perception of anicca is that we also develop a reduction, a diminishing in our desire for rebirth. So this is the ways in which we project into the future are diminishing through Anicca Saññā, because we can see how unpredictable the future is. Whatever plans we make, whatever thoughts we have about the future, subject to change, unreliable, uncertain. And this is an aspect of Anicca Saññā, of the perception of impermanence. Nothing's really very easy to predict, nothing's easy to control. Things happen in their own way, and so the sense of wanting to project into the future, wishing for more life, existence, happenings, fruits of plans, ambition, all the kind of future projections that we can indulge in, they can really be attenuated. They can start to fade in a good way when we recognize the kind of insubstantial nature, the lack of solidity in our future plans, the uncertainty. So again, it frees us, and it helps us to stop moving forward when actually we can only be here. There's nowhere else we can be. When we plan, and there's nothing wrong with planning, like we can plan, but with this wisdom, with this understanding that, the future is unpredictable, it's uncertain. I'll make these plans, but I won't hold on to them. I won't be disappointed if they don't come to pass, if they have to be changed one way or another. So another benefit of Anicca Saññā. And the Buddha also said the third benefit is that we can start to let go of our hopes for the future. So this is a painful thing, really, to project our happiness ahead in time. It's quite poignant for me, because don't we see so many of us putting aside development, putting aside the things that would bring happiness and well-being right now, putting them aside for some future time when I've retired, or I've earned enough money, or my kids have grown up, or whatever. And how often that time actually doesn't come for people. They may pass away before they retire. There may be many different happenings that get in the way of these future plans, distort and change them. And so to hope to project happiness forward into the future is a very sad and in a way unhelpful thing to do. Rather, we serve better this heart, this mind, by actually promoting happiness here and now, investigating and understanding the ways to bring happiness, bring well-being into the heart without delay. Why delay? There's only today, there's only now. That's the only place of agency. And so when we have a perception of impermanence, we're not looking ahead, because we never know. Truly, to wisely perceive the change that's our reality is to recognize that we could pass away any moment. This could be the last moment we have. And it's really wonderful then to actually be here, to be in this moment, not to be looking ahead and putting all our energy into something that doesn't exist, and may not exist, cannot exist in a way, no future. And so with Anicca Saññā practice, developing this awareness of change is a constant in our lives. We let go we let go of hopes for the future. We let go of the future, and so we can free ourselves and we can rest more fully and completely in the present. And the fourth benefit, the Buddha said, of cultivating Anicca Saññā is that it reduces ignorance. This is a way of seeing through ignorance. We have these vipallasa, these distortions of view, the view that or the compelling idea that there's somebody here, me, this is my life. This is a distortion of view. But seeing the beautiful in what is actually not beautiful, that which is subject to change, and indeed to see permanence where there is only impermanence. So these distortions of view really cloud the mind, they lead us astray again and again, and they are, not enabling us to liberate our hearts. They're preventing us from liberating our hearts. And the biggest distortion of view is to see happiness where there is suffering, So we can just be aware that, where we take delight, the ways in which we seek pleasure, we can be looking in the wrong directions. We can be seeking pleasure where really there's always the seed of pain when we seek our pleasures in worldly things, because they're not going to last. And so this, again, perception of change is something that can really break through these distortions of view and enable us to see more clearly. And to see more clearly, to shatter these illusions, is nothing but happiness for us. It's a relief for us to be able to recognize that there's nothing to seek elsewhere, there's nothing to hold on to, there's nothing to grasp. We can be free. We can be free now. We can open up to reality and really take this as a refuge. This is the refuge of Dhamma. And the fifth way, the Buddha said, in which Anicca Saññā is a kind of illusion shatterer for us, it's a great benefit to us, is that it enables us to let go of the sense of self. So this other distortion of view that I just mentioned, to see self where there is no self, to string things together, to join all the dots of experience and create me out of that. This is a source of great suffering, and it takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort to keep doing this. And so when we bring in perceptions of impermanence, we can apply this to the sense of selfhood, the sense of me and mine, and we can see how this begins to wear away, begins to dissolve for us, and we can let go of all the fears and anxieties, the stress, the suffering of holding to a sense of self. So these 5 ways in which Anicca Saññā, perception of impermanence, really benefit us on the path are worth considering. And I'll just recap. Perception of impermanence, Anicca Saññā, as a practice for us day by day, it reduces our attachment to sense pleasure. Our pursuit of sense pleasure can be reduced over time, and we can feel more contentment, more peace and happiness in the moment. Our desire for rebirth, again, we begin to see through thoughts and wishes for the future, and to be able to let them go. And also our future hopes, we can begin to let go of attaching to a future that is impossible for us to predict or to control. Anicca Saññā reduces ignorance in the mind, so our view becomes straight. We're no longer operating from a distorted view of permanence where there is no permanence. And our sense of self, this illusion of me and mine, something holding it all together, again can begin to dissolve, begin to fade away, so we can be freed up and actually start to dwell more fully in the way things are. Ah, what a relief. In this sutta, the Buddha gave some very beautiful similes also. And he said that it's like a farmer, ploughing a field. This perception of impermanence, it's like the plough that cuts through all the growing things, all the things that need to be uprooted, destroyed in order for the crop to be planted. Cuts through all these roots in the same way perception of impermanence cuts through the defilements at the root. We can get to the heart of the matter and let go of delusion, let go of illusion. It's like a reed cutter, the Buddha said, shearing the reeds with a scythe, cutting them at the root, cutting them close to the ground in such a way that they can't return. And gradually over time, if we apply the perception of impermanence to all our experience, we can see, yes, that there's a diminishment of greed, of desire, there's a diminishing of hatred and aversion, because we simply can't sustain these energies when we're flowing with reality. We're seeing them arising and passing. We're not holding on to them, and a diminishment of ignorance through seeing things more clearly. The Buddha compared Anicca Saññā to like someone who cuts the stalk of a bunch of mangoes. If you cut the stalk, all the mangoes will come away as well. So in this way, if we can develop Anicca Saññā, we can see all the defilements are kind of, in a way, attenuated through this awareness. They no longer have power over us. We can't be overwhelmed by them when we have foremost in our mind the sense of impermanence, knowing these things don't last. They have no power over us. The Buddha said it's like a peak of rafters. A peak of rafters. If we develop Anicca Saññā, it's like we're coming to the peak, this perception, looking from this place, we can see the whole structure. It's like the whole construct, the whole building of delusion, of illusion. And I refer this myself to, for me it makes me think of the sense of self. The sense of self is like a building that's been constructed, and it has all these various parts to it. And if we can come to the ridgepole, to the centerpiece, or to the peak of the structure, and see the whole edifice, then we can start to dismantle it. And Anicca Saññā is a very helpful way for us to be able to do this. How can I hold on to a sense of self when it's constantly changing and it's not in my control? I can't make it stay the same. How can I hold to that as me and mine? Impossible. So to apply the perception of impermanence to our experience of self is a way of dismantling, slowly but surely deconstructing. Let the house builder cease and allow the house to fall apart. The Buddha said, again, Anicca Saññā, this perception of impermanence, it's like the best of fragrant roots. It's like the best of heartwoods, the strongest of heartwoods, the most fragrant of flowers. He said it's like the greatest of kings, a righteous king, world ruler. He said it's like the radiance of the moon, how the radiance of the moon eclipses, overwhelms the radiance of the stars. Far in the distance, little pinpricks of stars, while the moon shines forth, so much more powerful for us here on earth. This Anicca Saññā is like the moon that can outshine all the thoughts, feelings, perceptions of permanence, all the delusory ways in which we're viewing the world. And he said finally, Anicca Saññā is like the sun shining in a clear sky after a rain. And the sky is clear and everything's fresh, and the sun comes out and beams its rays around. It illuminates the whole scene. In this way, he said, our perceptions of impermanence are able to illuminate our experience. If we can direct this understanding to all of our experience, then we're able to really see clearly with great clarity and gain insight, gain wisdom. So these are just it's a short summary of this Aniccasañña Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 22, the chapter on khandhas. Beautiful sutta, and the benefit of this practice. So I hope these words can be helpful for you, and I wish everybody every blessing in their practice. Farewell.